Hello, I'm Dr. Gordon Smith, Professor of Neurology at the University of Utah School of Medicine. Welcome to How to Become a More Effective Teacher, the Art and Neuroscience of Teaching, an online course about the Assessment Design Framework Model, or ADFM method for teaching. ADFM is an evidence-based, structured method for teaching that can be applied to any educational setting. The objective of this course is for you to learn how to apply ADFM in your teaching, be it with patients, students, residents, fellows, or colleagues. Teaching is a core skill required of all physicians. Indeed, the title doctor is derived from the Latin word for to teach. Regardless of your practice setting or whether you work in an academic center, you are called upon to teach every day. Many neurologists teach students and residents, and we all teach our peers and patients. Therefore, in order to be a successful clinician or educator, you must be able to convey information so that students and patients understand, remember, and most importantly, change behavior. Knowing how to treat a patient is only half the battle. We have to teach the patient how to participate in their treatment. While all neurologists have received thorough clinical training, few have received formal education in how to teach effectively. The result is most of us are ill-prepared to teach our students and often fail to successfully educate our patients. We have all encountered gifted teachers during our career. Indeed, it is often these individuals who have inspired us to take a particular career path. We wouldn't be doing what we are now if it weren't for these important people. Consider your mentors for a moment. Have you ever thought about whether their teaching skills are something they were just born with, like the aerobic capacity of an Olympic sprinter, for instance? Or were their skills learned and developed methodically? Click the button representing where you think the balance of inherent skill and teachable skill truly lies. As with any skill, teaching is a combination of inherent potential and learned skill, nature versus nurture. Think about your answer to this question as you watch the following videos. The first clip is from a successful student of an inspirational teacher and one of my mentors. Dr. Stefan Pulst, the chair of neurology at the University of Utah and a leader in the American Academy of Neurology, talks about the role of his teacher, the well-known neuroeducator and chair at Brigham and Women's Hospital, had in his career.
I'm Stefan Pulst, professor and chair of the Department of Neurology at the University of Utah. Marty is an exceptional teacher and one of the premier clinical teachers in the United States. So Marty became a role model for me as a clinical teacher as well. But through that interaction, he has also become a mentor for me in many important decisions in my life. He was very important for me deciding on becoming chair in Utah. I think that is very important in the role of a teacher and mentor. That these are lifelong roles and relationships one keeps or one should keep. And so have been very grateful for this opportunity. And it all started with being a medical student. And I think that's why we all enjoy teaching medical students and young residents.
Dr. Pulst's experience is familiar to many of us. He is where he is today because of the influence of a gifted teacher he first encountered as a medical student. The potential impact of our day-to-day teaching, be it to students or patients, is significant, a fact which we always must remember. Now let us consider Dr. Pulst's mentor, Dr. Martin Samuels. Most of us have heard Dr. Samuels lecture and are well familiar with his teaching skills firsthand. While watching this video, consider his approach to this teaching problem and whether this skill might be taught to a less intrinsically gifted educator.
So I was over at the American College of Physicians, and they wanted a neurological session, sort of meet the professor. So I told the people who were organizing it, why don't I just get a patient and bring a patient in there? You can't imagine how excited and agitated the organizers got about this. They said, what do you mean by that, a patient? I said, a patient, a person, a living human being is going to come here. They said, well, what kind of goals are we going to set? What kind of gaps are we going to do? What are we going to tell the ACCME? How are they going to get here? How are we going to get permissions to do this? Can you imagine this? A live patient with doctors? It was unimaginable. And yet, I know because I've been in their shoes, that's what they need, right? That's what they don't know, and what they fear is that the real patient is going to come there. And they can't apply all of this disconnected, disembodied knowledge. They need some help doing a neurological exam and taking a history. That's what they need. So I called a friend of mine in New Orleans, and one of the professors here, and he said, oh yeah, find your patient. He got me the patient. Patient came in, and it was a really compelling, I think, memorable learning experience for these folks. And what was it? It was my taking a history, sitting there with this man with 250 internists in the room, telling me what was wrong with him, and my doing a little neurological examination and involving the folks there as to what do they think we ought to do next to try to decide what's wrong with this man, and what does it mean to have increased reflexes? What does it mean to you all when you see increased reflexes? What does it mean when the reflexes are all increased except the ankle jerks, which are gone? What does that tell you? What about the Babinski sign? You know, do we think that's important or not in this situation? What about the fact that his cognition is not affected? What does that tell you about this? And they loved it. The patient loved it. And I think it was a very, very important seminal learning experience. A lot of these people, I think, will remember this for a long, long time, right? If you think about it, it's a very simple matter. And it isn't the kind of thing you would do with a group of sophisticated neurologists, right? Because they at least think, and we hope, already know these things. But those internists, that's what they wanted, right? I sort of put myself into their head. What do I want from the neurologist?
This brief vignette tells us a great deal about Dr. Samuel's teaching. Here are a number of words and phrases that might be used to describe his teaching approach. Select the one you think is most critical to his success. Here are the aggregate answers of others who have taken this course. Do you think these skills can be taught? We'll come back to this in a moment. Consider for a moment the different environments in which we teach. We teach in lecture halls, often to hundreds of individuals at a time, but also in small groups, on clinical rounds, and to our patients and their families. We teach through our writing and increasingly via online encounters such as this one. We've all encountered teachers who are very gifted in one venue, for instance lecturing, but not in another, bedside rounds for example. The objective of this course is to prepare you to effectively teach in any environment. If you're already good in one area, this course will help you translate that skill into other learning spaces. Indeed, if you are already an effective lecturer, for instance, it's likely you are intrinsically applying the basic tenets of ADFM and that you can apply them in other teaching circumstances. This course will help you become a more successful teacher by learning to apply the Assessment Design Framework Model or ADFM approach. ADFM is a structured way of developing an educational learning activity. It is based on sound education theory that has its origin in the field of cognitive neuroscience. Applying ADFM will facilitate success in the varied venues in which you teach, including patient encounters, traditional didactic and small group medical education, and online or remote settings. This course will teach you how to apply ADFM in your teaching. While we'll dig into more specifics later, here's a preview of a few key questions ADFM addresses. How will I measure that my objectives have been met? What essential elements are required to meet my objective? What pathway must the learner take to master the material? How will I employ the cycle of pedagogy to build upon what the learner already knows? For a moment, let us return to Dr. Samuels as an exemplar of the neuroeducator. It is clear that Dr. Samuels is a very gifted teacher. While he did not articulate a clear methodology to his teaching in this video, he in fact emphasized many of the key components of ADFM without calling them by name, as you will see as we progress through this course. Here again are the terms that we could use to describe Dr. Samuel's teaching, which we saw earlier. All are important and each captures key elements of the ADFM approach. Click on each term to explore. To return to this slide, click the green arrow at the bottom left of the screen. Speaking skills are helpful in large group settings, but in many teaching environments they are not critical. Consider why we value a good speaker. Most often it's because they engage us and clarify the subject matter in an interesting way. Additionally, they assess where we are and speak to our personal needs. Engagement and assessment are key components of ADFM. All good teaching has structure. Some gifted educators intuitively build this structure, but even these individuals sometimes leave out key components. ADFM employs an organized stepwise learning cycle and thoughtfully defined roadmap or trajectory for learning. Dr. Samuels is a natural teacher. What at first seems like intuition is really a sensitivity to the learner's needs and an openness to adapting to them. Exploring the learner's baseline knowledge and goals and evaluating their progress along the way are central to ADFM. Assessment is the cornerstone of education. Dr. Samuels assesses his audience and decides what material is appropriate for them. He also engages with them during the teaching experience in order to ensure he meets his objectives. ADFM uses assessment-driven design to ensure the learning objectives are achieved. Teaching and learning are inherently interactive. This is why many of us prefer small group settings. Educational interaction includes engaging or even entertaining discourse and the opportunity for the learner to control their learning pathway. ADFM accounts for how different learners explore subject matter and builds personalized knowledge models. In order to teach, one must first know. However, just knowing doesn't make teaching easy. Indeed, many experts are terrible teachers. The nature of the evolution from the naive to the expert must be understood. ADFM is founded in the cognitive neuroscience of this process. Experience is important, but think back to your residency. Odds are you worked with at least one very experienced faculty member who was not a good teacher. Experience improves teaching only if good teaching skills are practiced. In this way, teaching is no different than mastering any other skill, musical or athletic, where doing it over and over the wrong way creates bad habits, not success. All of these skills and strategies are important for teaching success. The foundation of that success is use of a structured approach that is based on identifying the goal or objective and use of ongoing assessment. Dr. Samuels has never received formal training in ADFM, yet he uses it every day. He is a naturally gifted teacher in part because he intuitively grasps key principles of ADFM. Very few of us are born with such effective teaching skills, yet each of us can learn these principles and how to apply them, and in the process become a much better teacher. Great teachers are born and made. The remainder of this course will discuss proven evidence-based methods for creating effective learning opportunities, methods we use in building NeuroLearn courses. Our next step is to define what knowledge is and how do we learn it. From there, you will be able to select your path to exploit the learner and the teacher slides of the learning equation. At the end of the course, we'll talk about putting all the pieces together.